What's up, guys? Scott Kumler here, and in this video, I'm going to take you through the exact steps I used to build a top 1% real estate business and how you can too. These are strategic steps that, if implemented, you can skyrocket your career. With that being said, if you're struggling with this and would like my direct help and support for free, click the link in the description and let's chat about taking your business to the next level. Now, one thing that's important to know when you first get into real estate is you want to know what the statistics are. And so 80% of real estate agents fail in 2 years, 90% of real estate agents fail in 3 years. The average agent in Arizona sells 2 homes a year. The average agent in the country sells 6 homes a year. Also, it's important to note that 70% of real estate agents sold 1 home or less last year. Now, I'm not talking about those statistics to scare you, but it's important to understand the statistics so that way you don't become one. So when you get into real estate, these are the steps that I took in order to basically get to the point where I was selling 50 plus homes a year and became a top 1% of realtor in the country. Now, when you first get into real estate, the most important thing to do is to basically get very clear on what your goals are and what your vision is and how you want to build your business. There's hundreds of different ways to lead generate out there, and I recommend taking a look at all of them to see which one fits your style and fits who you are. But what's really important to note is all lead generation activities work, but the only one that's going to work for you is the one that you're consistent with. And so that's why I say it's very important to kind of get clear on who you are as a person, because it's something that you're going to hate doing, that you're not going to be consistent with, then it's not even worth starting. So for example, me, I'm a huge introvert. So I wouldn't just want to go out there and call expired listings. And if I got in real estate and someone told me that I had to call expired listings, I probably would have got out of this business pretty quick. But so for me, it was more open houses. Open houses, a lot of people come to me. Then when I was talking to them, I felt more comfortable at that point. And so when I was following up with them, it wasn't that big of a daunting of a task. So the first thing you need to do is to get very clear on what your goals are and how you want to build up your business, and then do whatever activities that you're going to be consistent with, because consistency is the most important key. Then after that, the hardest thing for real estate agents to do in this industry is be their own boss. And so you have to realize, that you're not working for anyone anymore. You now are your own business. You don't have a job. So you have to be your own boss, which means you have to give yourself your own schedule. So for example, me, open houses was my main lead source when I first got into real estate. I knew that I had to kind of create a schedule. And so I got done working a job where I was working 50, 60 hours a week salary. I just knew I didn't want to work 50, 60 hours a week anymore, but I didn't mind working 40 hours a week. So what I told myself I was going to do is I told myself I was going to work 5 open houses a week every single week. 5 open houses a week equates to about 6 hours a day times 5. That's about 30 hours a week. And then if you add in an extra 10 hours of showing, stuff like that, that was basically a 40-hour work week. And I was perfectly fine with that. And so that was what I did for my first 6 months. And I was just completely consistent with it. And then on top of that, I added in social media. And so what I would do while I was at the open houses, I would post social media content. I'd do video tours. I would do a lot of different things that I wanted to from a social media standpoint while I was at the open house. So I was able to be as efficient as possible. And so what's important that you want to do is you want to create your own schedule and make sure that you're consistent with it. It's all non-negotiable. So I knew when I scheduled the open houses, I was going to be there no matter what. And so that's basically the way I built up my business. Was I said, okay, I was doing 5 open houses a week every single week. Did that for 6 months. Then eventually I started getting busier and busier and busier. And then I was able to scale it back to 3 open house a week, my first full year. Then I scaled it back to 2 open house a week, my second full year. And then I just kept getting more and more business throughout my career. And then after you start mastering something, like for example, with me, it was open houses. Once you start mastering something, you can start adding in additional lead sources. So, what I started doing is I started crushing with open houses, started getting really busy. I started adding in Facebook leads, and then started mastering Facebook leads. And you can start adding additional things, but you want to make sure that you kind of master the basics first and master whatever it is you're going to be consistent at. Because if you're not consistent with no matter what lead source it is, you're not going to have much success when it comes to that lead source. So consistency is really important. And as long as you're consistent, what you're going to start noticing is your business is going to continue to grow every single year. So at the point where in 2020, 2021, I wasn't doing open houses at all, but I was still selling 50 homes a year because I had a lot of leads from those previous open houses that were still reaching out to me. I had a lead call me the other day from 2018. Now we're in 2025. 2018, I met in an open house looking at selling the home, and so those type of conversations are extremely important. And the final thing that you want to do when it comes to real estate and how to be successful successful real estate is you want to make sure you track your numbers, because what gets tracked gets managed. And so what I mean by tracking your numbers is you want to track how many dials, you make, to how many conversations you have. And a conversation is for a phone call that you had talked to someone for over 2 minutes on the phone, to how many appointments you get set, to how many appointments you conducted, and then how many closings you get. And the reason why it's important to track your numbers is because you're a business owner now. And if you're not tracking your numbers, it's hard to tell where you need to improve and get better. So for example, let's say your appointment set ratio is extremely high. You're crushing at getting appointments, but for some reason your appointment conduction is really low compared to what the average should be. Then we know that maybe there's a problem between your appointment set to appointment conduction where you're not selling the value of the appointment, or let's say maybe your appointment conductions are really good, but you're not taking as many clients, right? So maybe at that point it's more of your buyer consultation. How are you doing your buyer consultation? How are you selling yourself at that point? And so it's very important to make sure you track your numbers, because that way you kind of know based on your own specific numbers. And we can talk about the averages and what a normal person does, but we need to know, okay, how many dials does it take to get an appointment set? How many appointment sets does it take to get an appointment conduction with your own personal numbers? Because then what you can do is you can reverse engineer that the following year and say, okay, if you want to make X amount of money or sell X amount of homes, now based on your numbers, we know how many dials you need to make, how many open houses you need to do, and all that good stuff. And so it's very important that you are tracking your numbers, because in that way you know exactly what needs to improve and how to get better when it comes to real estate. And the final thing in there that I wanted to mention as well is it's important to get good mentorship, coaching, and training when you get into real estate as well too. And I was going to say when you first get into real estate, but the reality of it is no matter how experienced you are, you still need people you can go to for help, support, and advice. I still have the exact same real estate coaches I had when I first got into real estate. And I've been in real estate 8 years now myself. I have the exact same coaches that I've always had in my career, that have always been there for me and always supported me. Because no matter how much you think there's always something new that's going to pop up. And on top of that, you also want to make sure you're aligned with the right people, so that way you can shift and adapt with the market as well too. The market's always shifting and adapting. And if you don't have any coaches or mentors you can bounce ideas off of, then it's going to be hard to really continue to improve. And no matter how well you think you're doing, you can always do better. And so it's important to align yourself with that great coaching, mentorship, and training, so that way you are able to continue to improve your business and self-develop every single day. We all don't know everything. We all need to continue to work on our craft. Even myself today, I have a lot of real estate coaches that I pay a lot of money to help me in my career. And so it's important that you make sure you align yourself with the right coaching, mentorship, and training. So now with that being said, if you do ever want access to all my mentors and coaches and people who've helped me grow my career and my business, and you want to look at partnering with us to determine, if it might be a right fit for you and it might make a whole lot of sense, make sure to go ahead and click on the Calendar link below. I'd love to have a Zoom meeting with you and have a conversation and see if a partnership may make a lot of sense. So hope you all make it a great day.